this should have been sharing the screen the whole time. I apologize. So let me back up there. Thanks for letting me know, okay? Make sure to interrupt if I'm not doing something right, either in the chat window or via voice, so I know I'm doing something wrong. Can you guys see the screen now?
Yeah, you
Okay,
can see it.
thank you so much. All right, so like I said, on Proxmox 2, underneath the summary of Proxmox 2, you can see there's a lot more CPUs. It's only at 3% right now utilization, which means it's pretty open. It's not doing much right now. RAM usage is really low. You can see it's got approximately 32 gigs of RAM available. Still only has about 400 gigs of hard drive space because I added the second hard drive, but I haven't partitioned it or set it up. I'll do that for you guys after class. It'll show up down here as something else. I can do one of two things. I can either add it to that ZFS pool and it will be transparent, or I could actually make another storage and call it like local to ZFS. I'll do one or the other and then let you guys know what I did. But I'm kind of leaning towards increasing the size of this pool. That's one really cool thing about ZFS storage is you can have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 different drives, not in RAID, or basically it's RAID 0. It can add a bunch of physical drives to one logical volume. That way you don't have to create additional storages, and you can have one file, for example, be bigger than one physical hard drive. So it's very handy to use volume management like that, whether it's ZFS or the traditional LVM, logical volume manager. So if you already are not, if you're not familiar with ZFS, I've talked about it several times, or LVM, which you probably aren't familiar with, you should go Google for those things. Type in Linux space ZFS, Linux space LVM in Google. You don't have to do it right now, just to get familiar with what that is and what the difference between a volume and different hard drives are. Yeah, Tony, I am recording this. Is it okay, Tony, if I just record this and I publish this? I've made my first, I'm gonna.
No, it's awesome. It's just that we've been waiting for your video.
I know, and I'm trying to learn how to use YouTube, and I learned how to use it today and figured out how to upload a video longer than 15 minutes. So
Okay.
I will get the previous class and this class uploaded just as soon as we're done, okay?
All right, awesome. Thank
Will you put that link on the Blackboard or?
I'll put the link on Blackboard, exactly. That's what I did for 4477. I think you saw that, right, Rahi? You saw the link? And
Yeah,
were you able to see that video, or did you get a chance to watch it yet?
I haven't opened the link yet, but I did notice it in my email.
Okay. So I made a video for the subnetting assignment. So probably what I'll do, I'm kind of leaning towards just making the ZFS volume bigger, so that's going to grow from 450 gigs to 900 gigs, basically. It'll be totally transparent to you. So I'm over here on, I'm going to go back over to Proxmox 3. And if somebody's on Team 8 or Team 5, you can do this if you want. I don't see that Proxmox 2 shared is yet available, because I don't see it added down here. So I'm going to go to Data Center, Storage. I don't see Proxmox 2 shared. If you wanted to see, I do see one NFS share. If I want to see what that is, if it was named something odd, you could simply edit it and see what IP address it's referring to. And it's referring to, oh, Austin there. There you go. Okay, are you in there, Austin? Okay. Sorry that you're in the waiting room. I'm not going to enable that waiting room next time. So you can see that that's the IP address of Proxmox 4. I'm going to go ahead and add one more NFS storage. .192.168.10.200. That should automatically populate. Varlib VZ shared. I'll allow I'll say I want to be able to put everything except for snippets. We don't use those. Bump that up to 3. I'll click add. Okay, so now that share is available, and you can make this easier on yourself. Let's say we wanted to move Amir. Amir, are you here today? I don't see Amir here, but let's say I wanted to move. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this one and then move it back. This is what I want you guys to do, just so that you can prove to yourself that you can do this. If you're on team 2, by the way, you basically choose one of the other servers. I would say Proxmox 4, since we know that they have a share, it's right there. So if you're on Proxmox 2, add Proxmox 4 share, just like I did to this Proxmox 3 and 4 cluster. So let's do a backup. This should be really quick because I'm sure there's not that much on this one. I'll click backup now. Storage, I'm going to change that storage to the Proxmox 2 shared. Make sure there's enough room. There is. It's not going to be more than a couple of gigs. Click backup. Since we don't have a completion that registers like it does on a VM, there's a couple different ways I can see whether the backup's still occurring. Or I can see that it's occurring right there because I've got the little spinning wheel there. But also I can go look at the storage itself and see if it's filling up or not. Proxmox 2 shared content. I'm looking for something 300. I don't see it. There it is. It may be done already. That may be as big as it is, especially if Amir's not put much on there. Yeah, it looks like it might have finished. It looks like the job is done because I don't see any more job going on down here. Where's that backup job? Okay, there it was. It's finished already. So it may not show up in the GUI, but I could have opened the console window for Proxmox 2. And I showed this in the last class, but I'm going to go ahead and show it again. I could have opened up a console to Proxmox 2 and gone to the actual location, the actual folder where that share is, which is under var lib vz shared, and dump. Var lib vz shared is the share, and then the dump folder got created because I said I want to be able to store backups there. And this file, this vz dump lxc 300 2020 with the date .lzo at the end, this file, you guys can see my mouse moving around, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. This file, that number would slowly start growing, and if you remember from the last class, you could use the watch command to watch a command, and you would see those numbers slowly scrolling up or getting bigger, and then at some point they would stop, and that would indicate to you that the backup's done. So if it's a large VM you're moving, you can go off and do something else and wait for that to finish. Or if you remember, and if you noticed, when you do a backup, you can put in an email address and say, hey, please email me when that backup is finished. So now I'm on Proxmox 2. Before I restore it over there, I'm going to go turn it off on Proxmox 3 because I don't want both of them running at the same time. I'm also going to take a look at a couple of things like the IP address, because that was one thing that we're probably going to have to change in the probably going to have to change that networking because that networking may not work over on another subnet or another server because it's in a different subnet. But anyway, let's just go ahead and shut it down. As long as your VM is aware that it's in a virtual environment, the shutdown should work okay. All containers are aware they're in a virtual environment because that's what they're designed for. VMs don't necessarily realize they're in virtual reality. They're like Neo before he got a knock on the door from, what was that guy's name? Morbius, or from the Matrix? Whatever Lawrence Fishburne's character's name was, can't remember. Neo, and what was his name? What was his name, Austin? Do you remember? Mobius or something like that? Oh, well, it doesn't matter. So a lot of VMs don't realize they're in a virtual environment. So if you try to do a shutdown from Proxmox, the virtual machine will ignore you. Morpheus, thank you, appreciate it. All right, so it's shut down here. I'm going to leave it there. My goal here is not to get rid of that virtual machine. I just want to see if I can move it like in an emergency situation or in a temporary situation, like I need to do something on Proxmox 3. I need to shut it down. I need to add more memory to it, something physical. And I told you guys, hey, you need to get all your VMs off there, but they still need to be running because they're important. So I'll go back to Proxmox 2 here. I need to be able to have the same shared storage. So that's one reason why you load your own shared storage is NFS storage. There it is there. I'll click restore. I need to change that container number. I'm going to use the same container. What happened, Rahi? We lost you there? Okay, I'm going to use the same container number. Click restore. And we can close that window, and again, we can watch that happening. Or, as I said before, we could take a look at this screen here. Now, we're not going to see it there. We're going to see it somewhere else restoring. Oh, wait a minute. Where did I restore it to? I forgot where I restored it. I probably didn't choose the right place to restore it to. Okay, by default, it restored to that containers folder. So that's the first thing. We have to make sure that we restore it to the right storage place because there may have been multiple choices there. Containers happen to have been the first one because it starts with the letter C. Okay, we could start it. I guarantee you it will run, but it probably won't have networking because we need to change the network stuff there. So I wouldn't even start it at this point. You need to change that. So what we would need to do is you would need to go ask Team 2 to give you permission to take a look at their spreadsheet. Just make sure you're not using an IP address, or just try to choose something that's high up in this range. So Team 2's range is anything from 201 on up to 254. So I'm just going to, since I'm just doing this temporarily, I'm going to guess that nobody is using IP address 192.168.10 dot, or I could do this. I could actually just turn on DHCP. If this isn't a server, or even if it is a server, let's just do that. That's probably easier. Let's turn on DHCP, take the IP address away. And then that way it'll be given an IP address which will not interfere potentially with anybody else's machine. We just want to see if it'll run, see if we can view it over here. I'm going to start it up. Going to get a console to it and watch it as it starts up. Now, I don't know what Amir's password is, by the way. So can't log into it, or can I? What's another way I can log into that, somebody? And that's one nice thing about containers. How can I get into that container if I don't know the password to it?
Can you use the console to change the password?
You can change the password when you boot it up. And yeah, there is a way, but there's even an easier way. If you're on Proxmox 2 and you're the root user or you're the admin user on Proxmox 2, just go to its shell. I think I already have one open here. And use the PCT or LXC command. LXC, because it's an LXC container, enter 300, and it will put me into that container. Oh, no, excuse me. Is it PCT? Pardon me, it's PCT. It used to be LXC, now it's PCT. PCT space enter 300. So Proxmox container, I'm in it now. I didn't have to know Amir's password. So you guys can sort of spy on each other. At least I don't want you to do that, but you can. With respect to containers. Can't do this with VMs. VMs is different, but with containers. So I'm now Amir, even if he's not here today. And now I can try pinging something like google.com. And that works. So that proves to me that at least I was able to migrate manually. I manually migrated a container. Now, yes, there are ways to migrate containers and migrate VMs automatically within the GUI by clicking a migrate button, but that's assuming that you originally built the VM or the container on shared storage that both machines have access to. We didn't originally build that container on shared storage. Now that it is on shared storage, I could more easily migrate it. I'm not sure what Amir's got going on this machine. If he's got, let me take a look and see if he's got any notes on here. Don't see any notes. By the way, after my next 2 classes today, since I've got a better handle on everything going on that's wild in my life, right now I will have, there you go, Benjamin, I will have some time to be able to publish that assignment that I've been promising you guys that has all of the different things that you're supposed to have on there. Like you're supposed to have notes on all these VMs. So that's -1 for Amir right there. So far he's got a 99 in class so far. Okay, that's kind of that's how I'm gonna start grading you guys. If I start noticing that things are not there, I start counting. Everybody starts at 100. Okay, so every time I see something that should have been done a long, long time ago, whether I published an assignment or not, if I've mentioned it 100 times, which I know I have with notes, I'm going to give you a point off. Okay, I'm not going to give you more than 1 on something like that, but I think that's fair. It's not very structured, but that's okay. That's all right. We've had to change a lot of stuff this semester. So let's see what he's got going on just simply by poking around in it. I should probably check to see if he's got virtual men running. How do I check? What could I do, guys? And you can turn your video and your audio on if you want. In fact, I prefer to see you guys. You're seeing me and you're seeing how look how much hair I've lost just in 2 weeks. This is what coronavirus is doing to me. Losing hair. So how could I check to see if virtual men's running on there? System CTL, maybe. System CTL. And what, system CTL -A for all? That's probably not the easiest way because that's mostly, that's okay, Austin, if you don't have your camera. Can you hear me though? Okay, and you can type. So you can type your answers if you want to right there in the chat window. That's probably not the best way, Rahi. It's a good guess, but the system control is mostly what we would use to see what processes are running that control the system, not necessarily other applications we install. Better to use the PS command. That shows me a list of all the running processes. Now, I did PS and it only showed me a couple of things, so we're going to add PS AWUX, all 4 of those parameters, and it will tell me all of the processes that are running and give me a more descriptive listing here. So I did PS space AWUX. I'm looking for a particular process that I don't see. These first few processes with low numbers are going to be system processes that are common to all of the machines. What I don't see is anything to do with webmin's or virtual min's process, which is called miniserv. I should be seeing MINISRV. So if you guys want to check me on that, go open a container or a VM that you know you've got virtual min or webmin installed on. Go to the command line of it, type in that PS space AWUX. There's not a minus for whatever reason on PS. And then use the grep command, use the pipe key first and then grep for the word mini. And see if anything pops up. Now that's not it, but here. It's called miniserv. So if you don't see that, or actually the reason you're seeing that mini pop up is that process 338 is the thing I literally just executed. So ignore that one. It's saying, hey, I'm grepping for everything that has mini in it. You should see miniserv at least 5 or 6 times. So I don't see that he's got webmin or virtual min installed on this. So I'm not sure what he has installed on this. Another thing that you could do is hit the up arrow and see what commands he may have executed before.
Hungarian?
What's that? I heard something. I could see what commands he's executed before. It doesn't look like he's executed anything. Maybe this is like a fresh container that he hadn't done anything on yet. I don't know. Amir, you're not here, are you? So I should probably be picking on somebody who's here, but that's all right. I move some stuff around on the screen here. And that's okay that some people are not here. I'm recording this, so hopefully they'll get the benefit of that. Anyway, that proved to me that that machine worked. And I moved it, and I do have networking. If you had virtual min running on it, you probably would have to go into the virtual min GUI, make a couple of minor changes, like on a container, I think we had to hard code both the IP address as well as the Ethernet card that it was using. Typed in IP address. We had to type in this number, whatever it is specifically. So you might have had to have changed that, but that's okay. You don't have to do that. Just ensure that you can restore a VM or a container, preferably a container, because they're a lot smaller. Just do a container first. I'm gonna go ahead and exit. Actually, no, I'm gonna go back in here because I want to show you one other thing. If you want to shut down a container or a VM from within the machine, you want to use the shutdown command. Shutdown minus capital letter H, which will halt the system, and you need to tell it when you want to shut down. Now. That won't turn it off, but what that'll do is that will bring it back to the original boot level 1 or boot level 0, meaning it's ready to have the power turned off or ready to have the plug pulled on it. And in the case of a container, it does actually turn it off. In the case of a VM, it won't turn it off. You literally have to come here and click on stop. It's just the reason I showed you that is if you were in a VM, using a VM, for example, if Joaquin's VM here didn't realize it was a VM, and I were to execute shutdown here, minute or two passes and it doesn't do a shutdown, and you'll literally see a failure down here, failure to shut down that machine. Excuse me. So what you do is you go into the machine GUI itself, or in the machine command line itself, either execute the shutdown command, or if it's a GUI, let's see what this is. Let's see if that's Joaquin's GUI or not. Probably not. Oh, maybe it is. Let's see what he's doing. Nope, it's not his GUI. So that one looks like it might be. Let's take a look at that one. And he may not be logged in. Are you here today, Joaquin? Don't see you. There's just a few of us here today, which again, that's okay because I'm going to record this. So if he were logged in, I'd have to use whatever the GUI facility is for shutting down the machine, clicking the shutdown button, for example. That does not look like the shutdown. That's a pause button. Maybe the pause button is the shutdown in this particular GUI. That's weird looking to me. Let's see if that did it or not. Oh, it just suspended it. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do a shutdown. I'm going to do a stop. I'm just going to kill his machine. He's not here. He deserved it. So once you've done that, by the way, leave the virtual machines there. So when I log in tomorrow or Wednesday, or whenever I decide to start checking this stuff, I should see a whole bunch more containers that are not running. Okay, I see Angelica's containers there.
Yes, I just did the.
Great. And does it work?
Yes, I pinged. Google.
So once that works, and once you're comfortable with
You might know.
the ability to be able to move machines around, that's the whole point of this exercise, moving the machine around. Once you're comfortable with it, you can do a shutdown, turn it off, and go back to whatever your Proxmox is where you're using things. Let's not all run everything on Proxmox 2, because although I've added a lot more memory and processor power, it's probably not going to run 25 virtual machines and containers, maybe 25 containers, but probably not 25 virtual machines. Also, there is a theoretical maximum. I'm not sure what it is. I've had 50 or 60 containers before on a Proxmox machine. I've got, on some of my Proxmoxes, I have over 100 virtual machines running. There is a theoretical maximum. I think it's probably 256. And they don't run them all at the same time, but they're all sitting there. So turn the mirrors off. I'm going to go ahead and make a note here on this particular one, because this one is different. This is a different instance. Although it's basically a clone, I've literally cloned it here, but it's now kind of living on its own. And it is different now because now it's had different experiences. I've changed its IP address, for example. So I'm going to put a note in here. And I'm going to put my initials. This is good practice, by the way, guys. There's not a official way to do this, but this is what I highly recommend whenever you're making notes on things. Use year, month, day format like that, then your initials, and then whatever you did on the machine. Clone of VM300 on Proxmox 3. Excuse me, it's not a VM, it's a container. That's minor. Let's see. I'll just say this one's inactive. But I'll just leave it there. And this is probably a good idea, especially for people like Angelica and the team members that were using server 7, because server 7 is starting to have issues, and that's why we moved it around. So, if you moved over to machine 8 and machine 8 started having some problems, you've got an older clone of it sitting on another machine. So as long as you make some notes, don't leave a bunch of clones laying around with no notes. Otherwise, you'll confuse yourself and you'll confuse other people. What's this clone sitting out here for? Okay, so any questions about that, about moving some things around? You guys think you can get that done in the next, it's either today or day or two here? This was fairly simple, I think. This is an easy thing to do, I think. Like I said, the hardest part will be if you did not have shared storage already set up. You have to resort to either figuring out how to set up shared storage or use some other shared storage somewhere on the network. It didn't have to be on Proxmox 2. In fact, Proxmox 4 had shared storage, so I could have added any other shared storage as long as it's available to these other machines. I could have added Proxmox 4 shared storage and used theirs as a, just basically a temporary box to put stuff into. And I call it whatever I want. I'm just going to call it junk box here. Or here, I'm going to Proxmox 4. Migration box. I'm just going to call it something like that. 192.168.123.420.200. Export that. Oh, access denied. Okay, so probably team 4 has not given me access in my IP address range. So again, those are the kind of things that I'll fix because that's more physical layer stuff. But in the export file, for those of you that might want to know this, you keep getting kicked off, Rahi? Are you getting kicked off, Rahi? He must be having some internet issues. That's okay. All right, so I can't add that. So if you do try to add a share, by the way, and it gives you that error like that, saying it's permission denied, that means that maybe that Proxmox 4 shared storage is visible. It's been added on the network, but you haven't been given access. In other words, my IP address up here. They're probably only sharing 192.168.20. Everybody. Oh, that's okay. Or if it doesn't have to be Proxmox. It can be any other machine on the network or on the internet that has some sort of storage that you can add. You'll notice that we've got several other kinds of storages here. Look, we've got CIFS. I could actually add a Windows storage. So if I happen to know the name of the server, I think it's called DC1 in there. If I happen to know the Windows name of a server in there, and I've got CIFS networking set up, I could go look at a Windows server and log in with a specific username and password. Let's see if I can do it. I'm not sure if there's any shared space on DC1. There is one called ISO. or you can specify the IP address. There we go. So this machine, 192.168.1.31, that is a Windows server, not a Linux server. I'm logging in as the admin so I can get access to everything I want there. Not a good idea, but I'm not going to add that, but you could have added that. I'm just showing you guys that there's other storage types that you could add. It doesn't have to be NFS. NFS is kind of the lowest common denominator. Okay, so I think I've talked that to death. So like I said, later on, I want to see everybody's containers.
Sales at AccuWeb hosting
What was that?
counts. A Toolman control panel on your
You cut off.
Are you talking to me?
step 6. Configuring
I'm hearing some things, sounds like another video. Anyway,
Yeah, I think it's a video.
yeah, so I want everybody to do that experiment, okay? Remember, set your machine up, change it so that it's using DHCP under the network settings so you don't bump into anybody else's machine. That's the easiest way to handle that. Run it, get comfortable with it, make sure it runs over there. You might even want to try this with your GUI as well too, your GUI VM. Run it there, then shut it down, and then don't use it again. Just know that it's there. Know that there's a clone on April 1st that's there in case you screw up your own machine. It's kind of another way to do a backup. Okay, so the next thing, and hopefully, by the way, at this point, everybody has installed some GUI and had some experience, and you're starting to get some experience with using a GUI environment under Linux, because you do need to start getting more and more familiar with that. You don't always have a Windows GUI available to you.
Can you look on mine, because it's saying I don't have the folder to download it.
Can I look on yours? Who was talking just then?
Cameron Bradshaw.
Okay, remind me where you're at, Cameron. What server?
420.
Okay, so tell me what's wrong with 420.
Okay, go to 421.
Go to do what? Oh, go to 421.
Yeah, and then go to the console.
Okay, take a look at the console of it. Okay.
When I'm trying to install the GUI, it won't let me because it's saying that there's no VM lib shared folder.
Okay, so are you trying to install a GUI on a machine that originally was just a text-based version of CentOS?
It's the first one I created.
Right, what I'm trying to say though is this virtual machine that you created. Here, I'm gonna back up for just a minute. Because I did see your email, I hadn't had a chance to respond to it yet. Let me look at hardware here. Let me see what you built it from. Okay, so you built it from that CD. You had not removed the CD yet, which is you should have removed it, but that's okay. You didn't remove it, which is helpful in this situation. It tells me that you created a minimal CentOS 7 virtual machine. Minimal CentOS 7 does not have a GUI already set up for it. You have to add a lot more things and install a lot more things before you can add a GUI to that CentOS 7. So what I would recommend, Cameron, is rather than trying to install a GUI from the command line of that minimal CentOS, create a new VM and actually use a CD or DVD image of a CentOS distribution that already has a GUI built into it. So if we look on, let's take a look under local and let's see what happens to be not on Proxmox 3, excuse me. Let's take a look at local Proxmox 4. Okay, there's a CentOS 7 minimal ISO there. You do not yet have a CentOS 7 GUI or DVD everything or some sort of net installed there to use. Let's see if there's one on Proxmox 3's local. So you'll need to get one there, or you'll need to find one somewhere. So let's poke around, see if we can find one. Okay, so there's one there. There's a net install there, but I don't know if we should share the local storage space or not. We should look at some of these shared spaces. Okay, there's not already any there, so let's just assume you're standalone. Here's what you would need to do. And this holds true for everybody. If you can't find an ISO for the GUI, we need to get one there. So let's open up a console to Proxmox 4. And let's go ahead and let's put it in the shared space so that everybody can get access to it. Since you've already, oh no, that's actually not true because your share is not working properly, but that's okay. I'll just show you how to do it for yourself. var lib vz and then cd images. Excuse me, not images, I apologize. Oh, templates. I always get that mixed up. And then underneath template is ISO. Okay, so you see what folder I'm in there? That's where I need to load using wget a CentOS 7 ISO that has a GUI built into it. So let's go find one. Let's find a net install because that'll download quickly. Oh, that's a wiki. Oh, that actually had it in it. Had a link in it. And we're sticking with CentOS 7 for right now. Let's get the net install version. So I'll click on mirrors here. All I'm doing right now is I'm just getting the URL. I'm just going to choose this first one in the list here, okay? And actually, rather than a net install, I'll just go ahead and get one of these. Let's get the DVD. You don't want the everything that's too big. Let's not do the net install because we had some issues with that. The minimal you've already installed. Live, we don't want that because that's not an installable version. So let's just get that one. I want to right click on that, copy the link address, and then go back to my Proxmox. Where am I? And paste that and get that downloaded.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so at this point, as soon as that's done, in a few minutes, you should be able to go build a new VM. Okay, so for anybody else, by the way, who is not there yet, and I'll post this video later on. Do this so that you have the DVD version. You can use the net install version if you want to go through that experience. That was a little harder to do. Get a DVD version downloaded to your varlib vz shared template, then build another VM. You can turn that one off if you want, the 421,
Okay.
unless you're using it for something else, or leave it running. Leave it running, turn it off. Build another one. Use DHCP because we're basically building that new VM as a workstation, not as a server. So you don't even need to add it if you don't want to in that spreadsheet that you share with the rest of your team. I mean, you could add it just so that people don't duplicate your numbers, but the machine numbers are a lot easier to see there. Add some notes to it. In fact, if I click here on summary and I should see some notes here for you.
I have notes on my container.
-1 for Cameron. It's okay, you got a 99 so far in the class. So make some notes there and put in there, and they don't have to be complicated. Just what is the purpose of that VM 421 that you created? Why did you create it? When did you create it? And what apps does it have installed on it?
Okay.
Okay. All right. I got to get going. I've got 3 minutes to get ready for my 4477 class. So I'm
Okay,
going to end this meeting, save that recording. I'll upload it a little bit later this evening, so you guys can watch this if you need to. But your marching orders for right now are to first experiment with migrating your container, cloning it, migrating it, essentially cloning it onto another Proxmox. If you're on anything other than Proxmox 2, move it over there. If you're on Proxmox 2, choose Proxmox 8 or 6 or 5 or somewhere else. Move it there. See if you can get it working. See if you can ping google.com. Then shut it down. Leave it there, but shut it down. Go back to your original and continue with whatever other experiments you were doing on that container, such as webmin. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to introduce you guys to WordPress, which is one of the most popular web authoring tools that's out there, and also one of the most hacked web authoring tools that's out there too. But it's a quick and dirty way to get a website up and running fast. So if there's not any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and end this meeting. If you're in 4477 class, I'll restart the meeting in just a minute. Okay. See you guys later.